We see them nearly every day, but barely know their stories. On the surface, they're tired, broken down, old buildings whose usefulness has long since passed. But look closer, peer into their shattered glass, walk their overgrown pathways, and see them up close. You begin to get a sense of history, a sense of place. Every day, more and more of these sites vanish from the landscape. Without them, the story of Colorado's past is incomplete. Saving what remains, crucial to preserving our state's rich history. These are Colorado's most endangered places. Hi, and welcome to Colorado's Most Endangered Places. I'm Stan Bush. We're here at the History Colorado Center, surrounded by artifacts of Colorado's past. Each one of these items represents a story, a unique piece of Colorado's rich history. But even this, the state's constitution, is just a small chapter in a much larger book. To get the full story on Colorado's history, you need to go out into the community to see history in its original context. Preserving history in its original setting is the job of Colorado Preservation Incorporated. And every year, they compile a list of historic sites in the state which are in danger of disappearing. Now, let's take a look at the sites on this year's list. We start by going back to the westward expansion. This is a recreation of Bent's Fort, and many early settlers came here along the Santa Fe Trail. Those pioneers found success in this state through trapping and ranching. Our first site takes us to Pueblo County and a one-room schoolhouse built by one of those early pioneers.
Luck. This is luck because this old adobe, it's kind of a miracle that it's still standing.
This one-room schoolhouse and nearby cemetery are the last physical remnants of the legacy of the Colorado pioneer Joseph Doyle.
Doyle was very important in Southern Colorado history. He had great connections with Bent and St. Vrain. He was connected with, he helped build El Pueblo in 1842.
Joseph Doyle made his living operating trade posts and hauling freight during the westward expansion.
He had trading posts at Hardscrabble, which is at Wetmore, and at Tarryall. He had one at Auraria, which is one of the beginning of Denver.
When the gold rush came to Colorado, Doyle struck it rich, supplying booming mining towns. In 1859, he purchased a tract of land along a 2-mile stretch of the Huerfano River, where he supplied meat and produce to his trading posts.
It had quite the operation around here for a number of years, where he's irrigating over 600 acres. He had a flour mill here.
He also built this one-room adobe schoolhouse the same year. It's believed to be the oldest existing school in Colorado. It served his children and those of his ranch workers.
And he brought in a teacher who they believe is the first teacher in Colorado, Goldrick. And he was here for about a year before he moved on to Denver and helped start the Denver school system.
Doyle would follow Goldrick to Denver after being elected to the Territorial Council, the precursor to today's state senate. He died while serving there. His body was returned to Casablanca to be buried in the hill overlooking his ranch and that one-room schoolhouse he built.
Every morning at 7:30, we'd have to be here.
It turns out Doyle's schoolhouse would serve local kids for generations. Andy Duran attended elementary school here nearly 100 years after it was built.
So it was already old. You betcha it was. It sure was. Because my folks went to school here. It was all one big room, and they had separate desks. You know, they're separated by desks. One row would be first, next was second, third, fourth, fifth. But there was only a few kids in each one.
Modern amenities? Not here. Students learned how the pioneers lived by living it themselves.
Now this was our water source, which is a cistern, and we used to have a pulley there with a bucket.
Through the decades, the school became a community center.
People would meet here, you know, to discuss stuff that's going on.
And he still reveres this building as his favorite school.
The teachers, they were great. They made sure you learned what you're supposed to. They didn't mess around. I wish somebody would have kept it up, you know, because this has so much history.
The school's former owner shared Andy's respect for its history and knew he couldn't save the building by himself. He contacted county officials.
We wanted to know if the county would be interested in accepting the deed, if he would deed it to the county so that we could then preserve and protect it.
The county agreed, but at the time didn't have a clear plan forward.
trouble with it is then folks kind of forgot about it over the years and nothing was happening.
The building continued its decay.
Me and my brothers will always look at it and say, one of these days we'll come up here and we're going to redo it all the way it was.
Local ranchers got together and caught the attention of preservationists.
And I ran into one of the ranchers out here, and that's when he expressed that the ranchers out here were interested in getting it preserved.
And so I started showing pictures of it to my fellow commissioners saying we need to do something. And so that's why we're here.
I would love to have this preserved. Right now, get it mothballed so it's preserved so we don't lose any more, but eventually restore it and have where you could have educational programs here and to tell the story of what it was like to be a pioneer in Colorado.
If we don't appreciate and teach to our children our history and our heritage, then we lose a big part of who we are. And so I want to have this be part of that.
It's still a long road ahead, but with a renewed interest and community support, people are hopeful that Doyle's legacy will continue to stand proud on the Eastern Plains.
Our history is still standing, so come take a look at it.
When we come back, we'll head to South Park and look at a unique piece of ranching history. And 19th century underground malls, how these underground tunnels kept downtown shopping districts active. Welcome back to Colorado's Most Endangered Places. We're now in the Kyoto exhibit, and this is a place that gives visitors a taste of what it was like in Colorado's rural farming towns. Surviving in early Colorado wasn't easy. It took grit and perseverance. Our next site is a monument to one of our early settlers.
I think he just fit in. He was one of those guys that's just, you know, a pillar in the community, I guess you'd say. You know, kind of a go-to guy.
That go-to guy was Samuel Schaefer.
He had come into the West in McCook, Nebraska, and he had a implement store and mercantile business there in McCook.
To Ray and Dean Schaefer, Sam was great-granddad. He brought his wife and 11 children to Jefferson County in 1902 to start a ranch at a crossroads along Elk Creek.
They built 3 buildings when they moved here in 1902. One was they called it the Community Hall Dance Hall. The other was this large barn, and the other was the store. He'd always really enjoyed the store keeping, and he really liked people.
It didn't take long before Schaefer's friendly demeanor made a name for him and the town.
It had been named several different things through the years, I guess. He just put out a sign and the name stuck.
Today the crossroads still carries Schaefer's name, but there's very little left of the ranch. The store is long gone, leaving only the barn and the community hall known as the Octagon to tell Schaefer's story.
My grandfather called it a dance hall and a community center.
So the Schaefer accounts talk about the wild dances they had in there. Well, I've been in there and you couldn't have kicked too wide or jumped too high. It's not that big in there. I guess you could have danced around the pole quite a bit.
Samuel Schaefer died in 1915, and the ranch sold to new owners. The little oddly shaped building carried on the family legacy of bringing together the community.
They would have family dinners, they would have social events. It was a Grange building there until probably the early 40s.
Donna Beck's family has lived in this area for nearly 150 years.
I'm very connected to the history of the area, and to preserve these buildings is of utmost importance to me.
The 2 buildings captured the imagination of new residents as well. Bonnie Scudder and her husband moved here just 24 years ago.
It was always just a very curious building out there in the middle of nowhere. It is made of logs, but on the outside, the white that you can see on it is actually painted tin.
Inside the Octagon, clues to its former glory hang faded from the ceiling.
There's beaver board, sort of pie-shaped beaver board, and somebody has hand-painted beautiful little scenes. The part that you see jutting out in the back on the south side is a stage, and it's elevated a little bit. It served as a church when the Methodist church that was part of this community burned down.
Time and decades of non-use have taken their toll on the structures.
It's just deteriorating very rapidly at this point from the weather.
Plans for new construction have brought a renewed interest in the future of these buildings. The Archdiocese of Denver recently purchased the property and plans to build a retreat center in the valley.
Their main focus right now is building their retreat center and getting all the permissions that they need to proceed with their construction.
The historic buildings aren't in danger of demolition, but the Archdiocese has no plans to use them or restore them either.
They thought that they could probably use the barn as a storage area, so they could make use of that. They weren't really sure what to do with the Octagon House.
Those close to the buildings would like to work with the Archdiocese to at least stabilize the structures.
It's a building that I think a lot of people had a lot of happiness and a lot of very wonderful memories.
They view the proposed development as an opportunity to teach visitors to the area about the local history.
As the Archdiocese develops their retreat center, that will bring more people to the area.
The more the buildings we can preserve, the more it shows the importance of the area to those people who just travel through.
It gives context to where we stand in history.
Ray Schaefer sees the buildings as a reminder of what community is all about.
Today everything's handed to us, and that wasn't the way it was. You built your community in those old days. When we look back, we really appreciate coming to this area and seeing, well, there was roots here. I think that's important while we save it. This is our roots.
Mining is an essential piece of Colorado's history, and the riches pulled from Colorado's mountains fed the state's economy for years. But what fed the miners? Our next site is really the industry behind the industry. The ranches in Park County supplied meat and produce to all the mountain towns. Just east of Como stands a ranch house. Its owner had a flair for style.
You know, you drive up and down 285 and it's always like kind of that strange building off of 285, and what the heck is that?
That would be the headquarters for the Klein Terriel Ranch. And for residents of Park County, this represents the core of their history.
It has an association with high altitude ranching. 1859, gold's discovered in Colorado.
The gold rush was one of the building blocks to Colorado's development, but there's always more to the story.
Thousands and thousands of miners are coming and they need to eat.
That's where Park County's ranching heritage comes in.
For people with enough foresight to say, like, we're going to go and we're going to try and make a living not chasing gold, but raising sheep and cattle to feed these guys, maybe one of the most important things in Colorado's historical development.
Emblematic of that development, this Pueblo-style ranch house just east of the town of Como.
The ranch house itself was built in 1928 by the Klein family.
Foster Klein was a prominent Denver attorney with a flair for style.
The building itself is also relatively significant for its architectural style, so this is kind of what we would call a vernacular representation of Pueblo revival, definitely more common in the Southwest. So you see this style of building in a high altitude montane valley is a really unique thing to see.
The Klein family rarely stayed here, instead leasing the ranch to tenants.
Really typical of ranches across the West, that you had investors and owners who then had managers live on site and operate it. Various families operated over time. The most prominent is Dan and Doris Hamilton, who operated the ranch from 1946 until 2001.
The building saw a few changes over the years.
The porch, it's believed to have been constructed not much longer after the building. It is pretty apparent that it uses different stone. The roof was added sometime in the 1980s to help with the snow load and rain and drainage. They put it on for practical reasons, but unfortunately it also dramatically changes the appearance of the building.
The ranch ceased operations in 2001. That's when Park County became interested in preserving it.
Park County has a long track record of success in historic preservation and a really robust preservation community.
Because of its location and where it sits, also in that view shed that is very beautiful and dynamic. It also gives folks the opportunity to look at a ranch house in its ranch house setting.
The county purchased the property in 2011 with the intention of preserving and restoring the buildings.
We have the main ranch house, we have a barn that predates the house, I'm pretty sure, and then also a bunkhouse.
When we looked at it, having that building, it was like, okay, we really need to do something to preserve that.
The county has big plans.
Rehabilitate the property back to its original appearance, research or educational center, artist retreat. We've considered a rent-a-ranch program, something related to outfitter for people who enjoy the state wildlife area.
It's got 1,600 acres around it that people can come up and they can walk, they can wander, and they can see this. Really, I think it's a magnificent old structure.
Time has become a critical factor.
It's unique. It has a lot of history to it. The wind has pulled those 2x4 or the sheets of plywood off.
The South Park site stewards keep an eye on the structures for the county.
We come out about once a month and just take a look at it. We take photos each time we come and visit the site and keep track of where the areas of neglect are.
It's in a really wide open area, so it gets hit very strong by the intense weather up here.
That harsh climate, though, brings people in Park County together.
To live at 10,000 feet and with 20, 30 mile an hour winds sometimes when it's 10 below, you just kind of get this connection with people that have lived here before.
That connection to history, perhaps the project's biggest asset.
Once you get started on a project in Park County, it's amazing how much volunteer help, how many people you can get involved.
When we return, we'll look at history hidden beneath our feet. We head to Trinidad, Florence, and Pueblo to seek underground treasures. Welcome back to Colorado's Most Endangered Places. We're in the restoration room here at the History Colorado Center, and this is where workers conserve the artifacts and get them ready for public display. We're joined now with Steve Turner, the Executive Director of the History Colorado Center. How do you decide what goes on display here?
You know, that's a great question. We look at a number of factors, but probably the most important is we really look at our collection. What do we have that tells a unique story that we want to be sure the public knows about and we think would make a great story that the public is interested in? So it's pretty much, what do we have in our collection? What are important stories out there that we need to tell? And really, I think also, what's the public interest in those stories?
What is the difference for people who come here and see something under a glass case to what they might see out in their community or in other locations across the state?
So people have an opportunity here to see really kind of unique, once-in-a-lifetime kind of things that they just might not be able to see anywhere else.
How important is it to your mission to continue to fill in those blank spots, those holes that we might have in the state's history?
Right. No, that's extremely important. Really, we're focusing on trying to tell a broad story of Colorado history, but also those stories that people don't necessarily hear.
So History Colorado also funds the Colorado Preservation Incorporated. How important is what they do to the rest of the state?
What we do is actually, it's a grants program called the State Historical Fund. We've made grants in every single county in Colorado, over $300 million in grants since we first started that. But when we go to a town like Alamosa or Rico, Colorado, or one of these smaller communities, $200,000 can make a huge difference to that town and to how they perceive their history and how important it is to Colorado.
That's incredible, and you do see them in every corner of the state.
Absolutely, all 64 counties.
Now, this is where most of the artifacts at History Colorado spend most of their time, in this climate-controlled environment and locked away in storage drawers and shelves. The last site on this year's list is similarly hidden behind the scenes, or more accurately, hidden beneath your feet. We head to 3 Colorado towns, Trinidad, Pueblo, and Florence, to take a look at how underground retail stores help build their downtown communities.
Visitors to downtown Trinidad catch a glimpse into Colorado's past.
When that urban renewal sort of took over the United States, Trinidad wasn't one of the places that you would immediately think to start renovating, and we sort of got skipped over.
As a result, many of Trinidad's historic storefronts remain unchanged from their turn-of-the-century appearance, something residents now take pride in.
Now in the 2000s, that's been a huge blessing for us because we have all these true treasured gems, stone buildings, adobe buildings, all those sort of really great things that we kind of lost in the 70s.
And some tables and chairs over here, and there's
For developer Penny Saidi, one building in particular caught her attention.
We walked out and I said, that building is adorable. We have to have that building. We are going to refurbish it. We're going to be putting in a nice restaurant here and luxury apartments upstairs.
For Penny, the real charm lies below the ground.
Here's our garden level. You can just see people sitting there having a cup of tea, you know, visiting their neighbors. It's so cozy and hometown feel.
These below-ground shops were once common features in towns across Colorado.
I was in love. I just thought it was just the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Historian Tracy Beach has researched these hidden storefronts around the state.
This is Old West, and you have to really think of all the people 100 years ago that were walking right over this to go into these stores. As the generations have gone on, people have forgotten what these things are. With the pavement lights, you know, they would have them on sidewalks or in manhole covers, or like this, a big, huge section of the floor covered in pavement lights, which would light up the entire underground area.
As picturesque as these features may seem, form followed function. The architects built down for a reason.
Space was a luxury, and you had these tiny little main streets, and you had a lot of people that wanted to open up stores. So they would have below ground shops at basement level, then you'd also have your first and second floor. This allowed them to rent out more space.
Sunken entrances are only part of the hidden treasures beneath our feet.
We're looking at what was under our sidewalk here.
Lee Newhart owns the Great Divide Bicycle Shop in Pueblo. He knew he had something special in his basement.
You've got the header there, and you have the open space here where there was a grid so they could provide light.
These windows looked out into a network of tunnels, all leading to the train depot.
I have gone up and down Union Avenue, and all the buildings have this. There's doors and windows all through downtown.
A lot of stories from way back when Prohibition came about. There was a lot of liquor moving down through the tunnels here.
A lot of times the ones down below would be maybe a laundromat or a meat market or barber shop. It'd be kind of like a below ground mall.
It may sound futuristic for its time, but it was an idea born out of necessity.
This is back in the Old West. We didn't have paved streets, we didn't have sidewalks. We had mud and horses and the things that horses do when they have to go. The women had those big, huge, flowy dresses and everything, and it's a lot easier to go shopping below ground away from all the mud and the horses.
Pueblo's tunnel network met an abrupt end in 1921 when the Arkansas River flooded much of downtown.
It got up to 11 feet high, the water, and so the silt just flooded these tunnels.
Too much silt to dig out.
And so most of the tunnels, they just sealed them up.
Those that remain faced new dangers. A road and sidewalk repair project in front of Lee Newhart's store filled in half of the historic tunnel space surrounding his property.
In some places, the sidewalk was in pretty bad shape that it was going to possibly collapse eventually anyway.
In Florence, one owner sealed up his for supernatural reasons.
The owner explained to me that he felt that the vault underneath the street was haunted, so he wanted to keep the ghosts in by dry stacking the door shut.
Tracy Beach believes these sunken treasures can play a huge role in revitalizing downtown tourism.
They are pretty much in almost every single town. You can open up these tunnels and you can bring in tourism.
The first step in that process, educating the building owners.
So when people come to Colorado now, they want to experience history. They want to experience the Old West. So you have a town that has something like this, you're going to get the tourists.
Over the last 21 years, 117 sites have been named to Colorado Preservation's Most Endangered Places list. Of those, 41 have been saved and only 7 have been lost. It's through their work and the tireless efforts of preservationists that our history can be seen not just in a museum, but anywhere across the state. I'm Stan Bush, and thanks for watching.